I know.
Yeah, well.
Okay. Well, I'll stop there. So what I'm saying is that how I stop this is that in Australia we also have what we call the Space Activities Act. And the Space Activities Act says that each satellite that emits data, they have to be licensed under ACMA, and they have to have $750 million per satellite insurance coverage. Now, Lloyd's of London will not cover any damage from non-ionising electromagnetic radiation, either damage or personal injury. So it's almost impossible for them to get that coverage under the Space Activities Act. Now, what I suspect is that ACMA is sort of keeping that quiet. Well, I'm not going to. All right. So in essence, that's what I'm doing. Okay. And I think that will give you an understanding. So I think hopefully you're a little bit more aware. Now, what that means is if we're going to be emitted, now wireless power transfer requires magnetic fields in order for the transfer to occur. So the best way to explain it, if I have a mobile phone, it has to operate at the same frequency in which the tower or the HAPS or the satellite operates. And the satellite and the HAPS and everything will have a huge magnetic field. So will this. And where the magnetic field joins is where the power transfer occurs. And that's the best way to explain it. So what I'm trying to tell you, in my opinion, is that we're going to be bathed in magnetic fields like you wouldn't believe. And the World Health Organization is telling us that 0.3 of a microtesla increases childhood leukemia. There's a consistent association between that. And what I'm really trying to say is this stuff, we need to find out it's safe before they start putting that upon us. And the whole reason for having these small cell facilities on telegraph poles, towers, HAPS and satellites, we got nowhere to run. And they haven't proven that it's safe. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
All right. Right. There you go.
People like Elon Musk, are they not worried about their own health?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think. I personally don't think. What's happened is unfortunately what's infiltrated is that you've got the regulatory authorities who set these standards are really the industry that have been lobbying and pushing to make these standards. If I talk to you about the this is just how blatantly obvious it is. If you look at the APANSA standards, it actually goes from 3 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. The cancer clusters were found at 50 hertz. Why did they remove the safety standards? Why doesn't it go from 0 to 3 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz? They removed the magnetic field side of it. What's going on? So what I'm trying to say to you is they're saying, oh, we're merely following the safety standards. Well, folks, there isn't any. And that's the issue. So, yes, we're probably protected from RF, but what about the magnetic fields? They're all forgetting about that bit. And the horrible thing about a magnetic field is you can't escape from it. You can escape from RF fields without shielding, you can protect yourself from that, but magnetic fields go through everything, including lead. You can't hide from it. You can't even dig in the ground and hide from it. Yeah. It's impossible. Anyway.
Yeah.
Got any questions?
What do we do?
My question is, why don't they just kill us all outright rather than like?
It's madness. It's madness, isn't it? I mean, look, and look, you know, this isn't. Look, the reality is that when I found all this out, and I'm sharing it with you, and I'm trying to share it with as many people as possible. It's simple. I'm not making this up. Yeah. This is real. And so what the hell do we do about it? Well, we educate as many people as we possibly can. That's the only way we're going to beat this thing. And so now you can start to see when I actually talk to councils, what are they thinking? They become converts. And that's what this is all about. The more people we share about, and you with your organisation and what you guys do with the consciousness side of things, is to try and share and just share.
Could I comment on that point?
What's that? Yes.
You said you had a successful meeting with Sutherland Shire Council.
Yes.
I live in the Sutherland Shire. 5G towers are still proliferating. They're going up everywhere. How do we tell when they're switched on?
Well, the issue here is that, look, the reality is this, and this is the problem. In Sutherland Shire, I provided evidence only for 3 of them. One was in Karilla, one was in Lillypilly, and another one was in Engadine. Now, those particular ones were only for those particular small cells. The rest of them, the council, even if they objected to it, the residents haven't provided any expert evidence to back up their claim. And the trouble is that the council reject the other towers that I haven't been involved with. They would just be appealed by the telco because the council's decision to object has been made without any expert evidence. That's the problem.
All towers are the same. They all operate
No, they're not. They might be, but
gets proved successfully.
The council are not as smart as you think. They get legal advice as well, and the only way I've won is with me being involved. I mean, if you have another tower or another small cell, in this case with Sutherland, look, we have what we call the precautionary principle. There's a case called Hornsby, Telstra against Hornsby Shire, and you'll find that that's a case where residents made an objection to a particular tower. The council objected based on the community's concerns, but there was no expert evidence provided by the community whatsoever. And the telcos provided their experts, and the Land Environment Court said, no, stuff you. The council made the wrong decision because they made the decision without any expert evidence on the side of the objectors, which was the community. And therefore, their decision was overturned. It cost the council an absolute fortune, and they were forced to allow the telco to emit. Now, what I'm saying is, pardon? Yeah. So what?
Go ahead.
So what you need to do is you need to, and unfortunately, that's the reality. That's how horrible the law is you have to provide expert evidence per tower, per every flipping time you put in an objection to a particular. And unfortunately, that's why I'm sharing as best I can. And hopefully other lawyers will pick it up and everyone will start realising you've got to get expert evidence in there, man. You can't just do it by simply, I looked at the internet, or Ray just said this on a meeting and that it's going to cause these dangers. You need an actual legal opinion, and because I'm an expert in that, in regards to a professional, so to speak, and you also need a medical opinion in order to stop these things. You can't do it any other way.
Every tower operates on the same principle. Therefore, every tower is an assault on the individual. And I thought that was the point that we could win on.
Yeah, but to prove an assault, you have to prove, in order for an assault to be proven, it comes to the individual. So you have to prove to the court that you've got a medical opinion that says that you're an extreme risk of harm to health. You just can't use it any other way. It's as simple as that. I know it sounds nuts, but yes, it's frustrating for me. Don't worry about that. But, the reality is, and a lot of the community don't understand this, and I've been trying to tell them this, and a lot of people have been running around trying to stop towers on their own, without and they won't get anywhere. Okay, and I'm trying to explain how to do it, that I know at the moment, and this is the only way that I know. And, well, I'm the only real successful person that does this in the world, really. That's it.
Yeah.
And so if it's so hard to obviously fight every tower, what the hell are we meant to do with regards to the satellites and the bigger craft? Like, how are we meant to...
We'll put a submission, which I've done, to the you put a submission into the World Radio. There's a parliamentary inquiry that's just been done. There's submissions that have been put in there. Look, the reality is I don't know the answer. Okay, I know how to stop towers. If I get a client that can prove that they're being emitted from space. And the way to do it is you get your phone, and if your phone's got bars on it from your carrier, then that tells me that you're being emitted by that carrier with electromagnetic radiation. I'm not really concerned about how much you're being emitted. Right now, I am being irradiated because I've got bars on my phone that tell me I am. Now, I can use that. Now, I might ask the telco, well, where's that emission coming from? Is that coming from that tower? Is it coming from up there? Where is it? And then I can start the case against them. And the whole issue is that you have to prove where the emission's coming from, and that's the hardest part. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you can also, if they contribute. So a good example, let's say the doctor says that it's going to cause harm. It doesn't matter if there's ones that you've got Telstra over there, you've got Optus over there, you've got Vodafone over here, TPG over there, wherever it is. The fact is that they're contributing. It doesn't matter. They're still emitting onto your property against your consent. Get lost, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Raymond, I've got diabetes, and I don't know whether you've heard of there's some studies done with fasting.
That's correct. Yes,
Yeah,
I've heard about that. Yes, yes.
Do you think it's worth me exploring that with myself, like fasting and going into an area where there's a lot of emissions, and then testing, and then maybe an area where there isn't as many emissions, or to see?
I do have a doctor who's found a marker, a biological marker for EHS, or what we call, I'd rather call it radiation sickness than actually call it EHS, because look, the reality is that microwaves are no different to, you've got your nuclear waves, and the only difference between nuclear and microwaves that we've been hit with is the frequency. It's the same stuff. It's electromagnetic frequency, and you'll find that it just happens to be at a higher frequency. The higher you go in frequency, the closer you get to nuclear, okay? Or what we call ionizing radiation. So there's a very fine line between that. Now, in your case, the best way to explain is this marker. He's actually, in essence, found a cure in a funny way, which actually can mask the symptoms of EHS or radiation sickness from this source. And he found it by accident because he's been dealing with a lot of patients, and some of his patients have been claiming that they've been taking this particular cancer drug, and this cancer drug seems to mask the symptoms. Now, if the symptoms can be masked, then we have a definite adverse health effect and marker that electromagnetic radiation does actually, EHS does actually in fact exist. Now, diabetes is sometimes said to be one of the symptoms associated with it. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't know if that's what's causing yours. But certainly things like brain fog and headaches and what we call chronic fatigue type symptoms. You'll find fibromyalgia is usually a classification that a lot of people are diagnosed with because the doctors just don't know what it is. Inflammation type issues, there's all sorts of things. But what it is he's found that some very severe EHS patients, by taking this drug, it masks them. So there's a study right now being conducted. There's blinds that are being used, and as soon as that comes out, we'll then have a field day in litigation issues, because what you'll see where I've showed you on that EMR legal education site is to basically get your evidence in gear ready now. So if you can get your doctor's opinion to basically say to you that, hey, this is going to cause harm to you, or not harm, that poses a risk of harm, and you let your emitters know about this, and they do nothing about it, that when the time comes when you actually have a marker and we can prove it, we go all the way back to when I've told everyone to go out and get medical advice, etc. You're ready for some huge litigation. And I don't think the world realises just how big this thing really is. This is literally it makes asbestos and smoking look like a joke compared to what this stuff is. All right.
I've got a heart condition. Should I do the same? Because I'm getting
heart palpitations, those sorts of things. Look, I'm not a doctor, and I've got to.
I had surgery this year, but I'll be getting a pacemaker early next year, and I don't want to be near a tower if it's going to affect my pacemaker.
Oh, I'd go and have a good talk to your doctor about that. And on the website that I showed you, the EMR Legal Education, I've got some redacted medical opinions. They're very detailed, by the way. And you'll even see that they're actually written for another doctor who was a patient of my doctor. Does that make sense? So you'll read that. Yeah. But you'll see I've also got mentioned there's the Physicians for Safe Technology. There's actually a lot of world physicians together who have actually got a lot of information on their websites.
Right.
Use that redacted medical opinion, point them in the direction of Physicians for Safe Technology.
Yeah.
Go up to your doctor and say, "Excuse me, doctor, I'm concerned. I'm seeking your advice, your medical opinion. Is this stuff safe or not? If I'm going to be exposed to this in my current condition in regards to your heart issue, is it going to cause any harm? I need to know. Is there a risk? Just ask for the risk, not the harm. Is it going to harm me? No. Is there a risk of harm? Okay, that's all you're asking. All right. And then if you let your communications provider know about that, your local council, let everybody know that, hey, I've got this medical opinion that says I'm at risk, and if some harm comes to you later and they've completely ignored your risk and this is the problem, then you're ready for litigation, if that makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
Is there a list of doctors that we can get our hands on who are on board with this?
Well, I can't really... Look, I suggest you go and see your local doctor, okay, and try and educate your local doctor. Well, not educate them, but basically tell them that about the ICD-10, that there is a good example is, do you know what another form of non-ionising radiation is actually out there that doctors treat? It's called sunburn. That's what sunburn is. Okay, so if the scientists out there are saying there's no adverse health effects in regards to non-ionising radiation, what the hell is sunburn then? All right, you're telling me that doctors can't treat sunburn? Come on, that's what the ICD-10 is trying to tell everyone. You know, a doctor has the freedom and the liberty to look at all the science themselves and then diagnose as to exposure to this stuff. And if the industry tell you otherwise, they need a really good kick up the backside, because that's not exactly how it works. All right. The other thing is you'll find that a PANZA cannot give health advice. They cannot give medical advice as to your health. And I've made that very clear, and they've actually changed their disclaimer. They put a disclaimer up. It even says, you'll see all through their various documents and fact sheets, they're saying, we cannot give health advice. If you're concerned about any issue in regards to health, go and see your doctor. And that's exactly what I did. All right. So now, a lot of doctors are very scared to come out of they're worried they're going to get in trouble with the AMA and APRA and all these other things. Well, there's nothing that I can see under the code of conduct that they're breaking, or there's no law or anything about a doctor doing this. So, and that's why my doctors have been very happy to come out of the woodwork. And I think Randwick was probably a good example of that, because those doctors on that street that their children will be exposed to were all specialists in their fields, and probably the top specialists in the country on that one particular street. So what I'm trying to tell you is that doctors are aware of this. In fact, one of the doctors that you'll see was an oncologist, and a radiologist was his wife. Now, if they don't know anything about this sort of stuff, then and they were the patients seeking the advice. So what I'm saying is, look, yes, a referral can be made to a specialist, and the biggest specialist I've got is a guy called Dr. Russell Cooper. He's here in Tassie, and he is absolutely brilliant. And the courts even recognise him as one of the top specialists in regards to EMR issues. And he was actually the expert doctor in a groundbreaking and leading case called McDonald and Comcare, where the Commonwealth government, it was a case where a scientist from the CSIRO, and just to let you know, Wi-Fi was invented by CSIRO. Australians actually invented that stuff. But anyway, Dr. McDonald, he's actually unfortunately passed now from his issues in regards to EMR. But he, at the time, was successful in winning a workers' compensation case where they recognised that EHS was an ailment and that he had a reasonable fear, based on the opinion from his doctor, that he had this issue. And that's exactly how I work on this process. So Dr. Cooper was the scientist there. Apanza was there on the other side for the Commonwealth, and he beat them. All right, those specialists from there. So, and guess who was the other doctor who was actually acting for the Commonwealth? Dr. Bruce Hocking.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. So I put a lot of work into this.
Yes.
A lot of work, and covered all bases as best I can. All right.
Kudos to you.
Okay. So any other questions, folks?
Have you had anyone talk about the solutions? I mean, obviously, before you're talking about with the cancer.
I mean, how do we
drug.
fix this? Is there an alternative? Yeah,
Well,
I've already got that.
I was just at a specialist the other day, and they had some like Tesla plates that deal with geopathic stress. I'm just wondering if that would assist, at least if it does get rolled out.
I haven't heard of anything like that. The only thing that I know of and I've heard of all these devices that you can plug in the wall and you can do all these sorts of things and chucking coils up everywhere. And look, I don't know. And from the thousands of people I've dealt with over the years, the only thing that seems to work in some form is flywire. There's aluminium flywire as a shielding. I don't even think shielding paint works. I don't think a bit of shielding fabric might do the trick, but the real thing is not one person have I heard about where there's a bit of a mat that you can lay on your bed that some people say it seems to work. But as far as these electronic shielding things that you plug in the wall and turn on, if it supposedly protects you, well, then you wouldn't get any mobile phone service anyway. I mean, it just doesn't, it doesn't seem to, from what I've heard from everyone, it seems to work. What needs to be educated, and this is something that you all need to know, is there's a thing called the square kilometre array, and that's in Australia. And the Square Kilometre Array project is a multi-billion-dollar project where they're setting up a kilometre array, a square kilometre array of radio telescopes to find planets and another planet somewhere out in the universe and to receive electromagnetic waves from those. So in essence, they've got to be very sensitive and they can't have any EMR contamination whatsoever within a 250 kilometre radius of this telescope. So it's a bit of a white zone. But what it's forced is the world community to develop safe technology. And what they've developed is wireless and fibre optic technology, which is way superior than 5G. To give you an idea, 5G operates at maximum 10 gigabits per second. The fibre technology that they've developed for the Square Kilometre Array, which is developed by an Australian company, operates at 64,000 gigabits per second, far superior than 5G. The latency period is extremely fine. It just absolutely decimates 5G and wireless technology. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we already have the safe technology. Why aren't we using it? They use it where they want it. Okay. So now apparently this is communicating with another similar thing that's been set up in South Africa, which is under the Square Kilometre Array as well. So it's Australia and South Africa, and the world is all behind it. So we just need to adopt that technology, not this 5G stuff.
Yeah.
Wireless power, wireless transfer of data, it's extremely unknown as to safe. The interesting thing about the fibre optic is there's no EMR emissions whatsoever.
That's interesting. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And you all know that the old landlines, the old Ethernets, that is a lot safer than having wireless electrical energy around everywhere. If you get a chance, I've actually got a video on Disney which will explain how magnetic induction works. Do you want to see it?
Disney?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get it for you. Just bear with me.
Are you also able to send us your presentation?
Yeah, give the PowerPoint.
I would.
IP.
Is it good? Is it?
Well, I'm not going to remember all the different acts I need to look at.
It's okay. It's okay.
A lot of information there.
I'll try and find the. I'll find it. Hang on. I'll get to it. Just bear with me.
Or email some stuff to Joy and she can spread it in the group.
Yeah. Look, the reality is everybody's asking me for this sort of stuff.
Yes. You're in demand.
I am. You're very lucky to get me, I'll tell you that.
You're very generous. So, yeah.
I think this might be.
Get one of your to write your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're so grateful.
Yeah.
That's all right. You're getting a bit of a private audience here.
Yeah.
I'll try and find it. I think, just bear with me for a minute. That's the active denial system. Here we go. Now this should give you an explanation of how it sort of works. Run an electric current through a coil of copper wire, and the coil will produce a short-range magnetic field.
We
Place
can't.
a second coil within this field.
Can you share that with us, Ray? You got to flip it up again.
Magnetic. How's that?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see it now?
Yes, thanks.
Yes.
Whew. Sorry about that. Run an electric current through a coil of copper wire, and the coil will produce a short-range magnetic field. Place a second coil within this field, and an electric current will flow through it. The magnetic field has transferred electrical power from one coil to the other. This principle is called induction, and it has been understood for more than a century. Induction is what charges a wireless electric toothbrush, for example, and it works well over extremely short distances. Pull the coils apart, and the power transfer ceases. It turns out that the trick to longer distance power transfer is the same principle an opera singer uses to shatter a wine glass from across the room. It's called resonance. For the opera singer, when the frequency of the sound wave matches the unique resonant frequency of the glass, the acoustic energy is converted to kinetic energy at the highest possible efficiency. The energy then builds inside the glass until it shatters. The coils that Witricity uses to transfer power wirelessly are magnetic resonators. First, a rapidly oscillating electric current is applied to a coil at its specific resonant frequency. This creates a magnetic field in the region around the coil. Tune a second coil to the same resonant frequency as the source, and it will couple, resonating anywhere within that region and converting the oscillating magnetic field into an electrical current within the second coil. This response is called highly coupled magnetic resonance, and it hasn't been done before. Yes, it has. By attaching the second coil to a device, such as the battery of an electric car or a mobile phone, this current can be made to do useful work. The source can be either centimeters or meters away from the device being powered and can deliver power through walls or around metal obstacles. The power can even be distributed across multiple devices at once. So by a simple trick of physics, power is transferred wirelessly. There you go.
Okay.
Is that interesting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so what we've got here is I'm going to now show you something where they did it in a room, and this is going to really freak you out. This is Disney. This will give you a really good idea how magnetic fields are very, very important in wireless power transfer.
During the turn of the century, Nikola Tesla had this idea to send wireless power anywhere around the planet. How we wanted to do that was set up a standing electromagnetic wave that would reverberate between the ionosphere and the ground and travel around the world, and we'd be able to tap energy out of this. Well, that idea didn't really work out, but it gave us some inspiration for ways to set up.
It did work out. They've done it already.
What we're going to do is we have a metallized room, and we're going to use standing electromagnetic waves that reverberate all around this room, providing wireless power to any device inside. There are a variety of forms of wireless recharging. One of them is rechargeable toothbrushes, where you have your toothbrushes placed in a little charging cradle, and it provides one-dimensional charging. Another form of wireless recharging is wireless charging pads, where you can have a cell phone that's placed anywhere on that pad. But what we really want is a three-dimensional charging experience where you walk into your living room or office and your cell phone is charged simply by walking in.
The way we're trying to address this problem is by building large metallic structures and filling them uniformly with magnetic fields. From these magnetic fields, we can couple power out to specially designed receivers. So the room that we've constructed is your standard rectangular type of room, except that the wall, ceiling, and floor are all made from aluminum panels. Into the middle of the room, we've inserted a long copper pipe. And in the center of that copper pipe, we've actually cut a small gap into which we insert discrete capacitors. And it's those capacitors that set the electromagnetic frequency of the structure and confine the electric field.
Since magnetic fields don't interact strongly with everyday objects, we're able to place tables and chairs and everyday furniture in our wireless power room without affecting power transfer.
At the resonant frequency, currents travel up and down the pole at 1.3 million times per second. Those currents travel through the ceiling, down through the walls, and back down to the floor.
That's 1.3 gigahertz, folks.
It's those currents that generate magnetic fields that circulate around the pole. One of the remarkable things about this room is that with the appropriate receiver design, we can actually power many devices simultaneously. It's because of the way the magnetic fields swirl around the pole. The initial receivers we designed need to actually be oriented perpendicular or orthogonal to the magnetic field swirling around the pole to receive power. If they're oriented parallel, they receive no power. To gain orientation independence, we took 3 coils and put them into a 3-coil orthogonal system such that at any orientation we can receive power.
In this work, we're demonstrating room scale wireless power, but there's no reason we couldn't shrink this down to the size of a toy box or a charging chest, or scale up to a warehouse or a large building.
Our simulations show that we can transmit 1.9 kilowatts of power while meeting federal safety guidelines. This means it's completely safe for people to occupy this space for any amount of time.
Okay, so as you can see, the most important part of setting up wireless power transfer is a huge magnetic field. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Now, when the World Health Organization tells us that 0.3 of a microtesla causes childhood leukemia, what are we going to do? And I just showed you about the studies in regards to mobile phones back in 2007, where it was 90 microtesla, and then a study in 2017 that says that iPhones irradiate 6,200 microtesla. What are the new smartphones going to be like? Because as you heard in regards to magnetic resonance frequency, they have to be at the same frequency. So if you're going to be issuing something that's around, I don't know, 6 gigahertz, which is what they're talking about with 5G, your phone also has to emit the same frequencies. And it has to emit a very similar magnetic field. Now that is scary. So I don't know if I'm educating you here, but I think you're starting to get the drift.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll have to go away and process it and read more and
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have you got any more questions you want to ask me? Because I know we've been here for a while now, but I'm sorry it took so long, but this is the reality of I have to do all the time.
Who's making all the money from this stuff?
Well, if you have a look at it, they reckon that the technology is, and we're talking trillions in all the smart devices. So really what they're doing is that it's an economic, who's making the money? Well, there's a hell of a race for all companies and technologies to set up wireless devices such as your phone. We're already doing it now. I mean, your 5G, the new phones you're buying, are all set up for wireless power transfer. And it's just a matter of time before they set up all the infrastructure with the satellites and the HAPs and everything before they really kick it in. And they're making a lot of money. It's all about these things. It's about selling these things. That's what it's all there for. To start off with selling these buggers, and then selling, then they'll start putting in toasters and ovens, and it'll get to the point where you won't need to plug anything in the wall anymore. I mean, it's kind of cool when you think about it. But now, one thing that I'd really like you to look at is there's check out Nikola Tesla as to what he was all about. They've already designed. There's a company in Bahrain. So the Arabs have already formed. That thing where he was talking about. Oh, they haven't. That thing, we haven't got anything yet. Where they talk about it in the ionosphere. It's called the Zamic wave, they call it, where you just need one device that sends out electromagnetic radiation from that at a frequency, and it can go around. Electromagnetic radiation, by the way, goes at the speed of light. I don't know if you knew that. And there's no impediment with a magnetic wave at all. You can go through anything. Remember they said you can charge brick walls. It's a magnetic wave, so literally it can go anywhere in the world. And so in essence, they have power companies that literally pump this stuff out and send a huge frequency throughout the world. The Bahrain are already doing it. The Americans in Texas, you just look for the Texas Nikola Tesla Tower, or whatever you find, there's actually one sitting right there right now. That's where they're going. So there's a big race. So you've got all different companies are forming these ones that go around the world through the Nikola Tesla type arrangement. Elon Musk is setting it up in essence for his wireless power transfer and data transfer from space, and harvesting solar power and sending it down by microwaves to us. You've got, well, all those things that you saw Disney are developing stuff, you saw Y-City are doing it, they're all doing it. There's thousands of companies around the world that are developing this stuff. How do we stop it? I don't know. And the only way I can think of is to educate people.
Ray, what about the draw on our electrical grids, the pressure on our electrical grids that this is all going to take? Surely it's going to cost us in some kind of way. Like, how can we actually create enough energy for that?
Well, this is what I'm talking about. So the energy has to come from, we still have to have the same energy. It has to come from somewhere. And that's why they need higher frequencies, so as it can go further. And that's what the World Radio Communications Conference is about, is increasing the radio frequencies astronomically up to 92 gigahertz. And remember, the safety standards goes up to 300 gigahertz. That's scary. So that means that there is a look, I don't know the answers, except I just know how to stop some things with law. But I think that you've had a bit of an eye-opener as to what's really going on. Okay.
I think you've created a snowball though, right?
Yeah.
A what?
I think you've created a snowball effect. Others are taking it on.
Yeah.
I think that's the reality, and I think, look, I don't know why it was me that picked it up, but it's just it just happened. It just and there's more stuff than I'm just telling you. So, but the reality is that that's what really concerns the crap out of me.